Today is part two of many of my 2023-2024 homeschool planning. So let's get started. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new. My name is Heather. I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, elementary, middle, and high school age. We're finishing up our 12th year homeschooling this year, and I am in the planning stages for next year, which is crazy, but I'm also really excited about it because this year has been a little bit rougher than I would normally like it to be. If you are new, you're not subscribed, I would love for you to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you are notified of all of my future videos. And if you haven't seen part 1 of my homeschool planning playlist, I will leave a link for that in the description box because it's kind of where you should start if you are jumping into homeschool planning with me right now. So in my last video, I talked a lot about compiling lists and doing a lot of research and trying to figure out what are the things that I really want to focus on next year. And part of that is because I need to make sure that I am buying what we need for resources and not just randomly buying a bunch of things and hoping to use them. Obviously, I want to be cost effective when purchasing curriculum. Now, I start pretty early with my planning, partly because I have used Sunlight as the base of our homeschool curriculum since I started homeschooling 12 years ago. And so we have gone through pretty much every single level from P3-4 through level 200. And so I am able to go back and utilize a lot of the resources that I've previously purchased for my younger kids. And so what I do is I start making my lists and then I figure out what I need updated. Now, because Emma and Jack went through the lower levels of Sunlight so many years ago, I am definitely updating some of the instructor's guides that I have used in the past for Lucy. This year we are finishing up level C for Lucy, which is year 2 of world history, and next year she will be moving into level D. Now, there are some updates to level D for next year, and so I am waiting until after April 1st to order some of the resources for Lucy. So what I do is I go through and I make my list of subjects that we are required to teach in Maine. And obviously I want to hit on the big 4, which are English and language arts, math, history, and science. And so I will write down, after I've done my research, after I've made my lists, I will write down the resources that I want to use for the particular subject areas. And then I go through what I have in front of me, all of the books and resources that I already own, and see if there are updates that need to be made. Now, if I can get away with purchasing older curriculum or older instructor's guides, I will do my order for those things before April 1st. And Sunlight updates all of their homeschool curriculum after April 1st. So new stuff April 1st, old stuff prior to March 31st is when you can order it. And so this week is really the time that I focus on ordering things and figuring out what I need for next year to have in hand before I even actually plan lessons or whatnot. Now, I did purchase some resources a couple of weeks ago of things that I knew that I wanted specifically for Lucy and a little bit for Jack, and a couple of just random things that I know that are not being updated, things like Wordly Wise will start spelling UC for Lucy next year, and which my older 2 used in the elementary years. It's like a copywork based approach to spelling, which I really like. So I do have an order sitting next to me of things that I have already purchased, some instructor's guides that I know were not going to be updated, as well as some worksheets for language arts curriculum that I already have and don't need updates for, primarily level 3, which is what we're going to start Lucy on next year, and then level J, which I believe is what I'm going to do for Jack for next year. It's kind of a toss-up between level J, which is what Emma used when she was in 8th grade. It is a lot of fantasy and science fiction, dystopian books, so Really interesting. And then the other alternative is level 100, which is American historical literature. And it does go with the level 100 history, US history, which I'm planning on using for Jack for next year. So I am still in my Erin Condren teacher planner from this year, the 2022-2023 planner, and I have listed out their main subjects. And then what I do is look and see if I need updated things or if I don't. And so for instance, for Emma in English this year, she's going to be using level 300 for English and language arts and her history through Sunlight, and that is 20th century world history and 20th century world literature. So that is already taken care of, and I actually purchased that last year for her because I wasn't sure how this year would go with history. She's been using constitutional literacy for part of her history this year, and we have been doing a little bit of 1800s history, and we're moving into 20th century history right now, just US history though. So I already know that we're going to be doing that with Emma. So that takes some of it off of my back, that I don't have to concentrate on those two big subjects because I already have those in-house. Now, when I bought level 300, it was actually prior to the updates for 2022-2023, and they do have a different spine for level 300 now. So I may purchase that spine, but I'm not going to update my instructor's guides because I think that I can just figure out how to use that spine myself. I'm not as concerned about the notes for the spine specifically. Now for Jack, I'm still back and forth trying to figure out if I'm going to use level J or level 100. I think that he wants to use level J, and so we're going to go through the books. He and I are, if you've watched any of my homeschool updates this year, you will know that I really struggled this year choosing books for Jack. He has been doing a combination of level H books as well as some books that I pulled for his main studies curriculum that he's been using for history this year. And he has not really enjoyed most of the books. And so he's read a good portion of them. We dropped a few, and then he started choosing his own books the second semester because he had read all of the books that I chose in the fall, except for the few that we did end up dropping. So he's been choosing his own books this semester, and that has been going pretty well. I think he read through the Hunger Games. He's been reading through the Survivors series. He does choose just random books to read from the library, but he is always reading. And so I think that that has been good, but I want to sit down and have him go through the level J books as well as the level 100 and see which are more appealing to him. I'm not sure if I will have him read every single level J book. There are a few that I know he really won't be interested in. And honestly, every year when I purchase curriculum from Sunlight, there are a few books that we just don't read. It doesn't mean that we will never read them. It's just that I know that in that particular year, we probably will not read them. And sometimes I will choose a replacement book. Sometimes we will put it off to later for a different year. All of the books do eventually get read. Even books that we skipped out on in levels B through E, the elementary years, when Emma and Jack went through those levels. Emma picked them up in middle school. Jack picked them up in middle school. We used some as read-alouds. So I'm never upset about having extra books. That's never been an issue for me. But just trying to figure out where to place Jack, as well as making sure that he's learning all of the things that I know that he needs to know without being bored out of his mind. That is my primary goal. I do have a list of the things that I need to purchase, and I have written out whether I need the updated stuff, so I have to wait until April 1st to order those things, or if they are things that I can order before April 1st. And so I did put in my before April 1st order, and I have all of the things here. That is good. The next part of my planning process is really interest-led learning. And this is a little bit more challenging for me to plan out because, your kids' interests, they change. regularly, and that is totally okay. And so it's very difficult to plan out a full year of passion projects for your kids. But what I have talked about in the past is using the vision boards that my kids make in January, as well as sitting down and talking with them during our monthly conference each month and jotting down ideas. When I see them excited about learning a new skill or learning something, I always write it down either in the Notes app on my phone or in my planner itself. More typically, it's been in my planner itself so that I am able to compile all of that information when I'm researching. Because when my kids are looking to do passion projects, it takes a lot of work on my end to make sure that I am finding the correct resources for them. It takes a lot to facilitate those passion projects, and there is definitely a balance between what we can spend on different tools and resources and what we just have to kind of make do with around the house, and with local resources, the library and such. So the next part of my planning, after I've kind of covered the base subjects in our school, is to sit down with my kids and listen to them talk about what they are interested in. So I spend a lot of time reading about different ways, different methods of homeschooling, and I spend a lot of time talking to my kids about those different methods. And that helps prompt them to come up with new ideas of things that they want to learn. So when we talk about, their interests, I try to help funnel them in a direction for a particular project. Now, I don't lead them on this discussion necessarily. I really listen at first, and then I come up with some different ideas, some different projects that might work, books that they could read, or TED Talks or documentaries or research classes from online, all kinds of different things. And then I bring those back to the kids and we really sit down and flesh out some more of those ideas. Is this something that they think will work for them, or is it something that they want to take the lead on in a different direction? And that's totally okay. But I try to prepare a lot of those project-based learning opportunities ahead of time so that when my kids start their passion projects for a new quarter, they have some resources readily available for them. Does not mean that I spend a ton of money, but it does mean that I go on Skillshare and look for different classes, or I will go on OutSchool and look for some different classes, or I will find resources on Khan Academy. I will check out books from the library, and then my kids have a set number of resources to start with. And then where they go from that is really up to them, but it gives them a starting point, because when you give your kids unlimited information, it can be really hard for them to focus and make progress on that interest. It's very similar to a toddler who is sitting in a room full of toys. There are so many choices that they get overwhelmed and they're not able to play with anything, even though their room is totally full of toys. Because there's so many things vying for their attention, they can't concentrate on one thing. So I try and pick some good resources from some different mediums, and then I let them kind of explore those resources and take the next step that they want to take within those passion projects. Now, passion projects are not something that I have always focused a ton of time on. I do really try to consider my kids' interests when I'm planning homeschool, but I've always done it through the lens of the curriculum that I choose, trying to find curriculum that has topics that are of interest of my kids, finding science programs that they're interested in, and really managing their interests that way, while also allowing them time to just kind of do their own thing in the afternoons, and still finding helpful resources for them. But it's been a lot more in the past couple of years, I think, as my older two have moved through middle school and into high school. Emma is going into her third year of high school level classes this year. And because of that, I really want to focus on what their passions are so that they are able to start thinking about the future. When I know when I was in high school, I had completely different ideas on what I would be doing long term than what I'm doing right now. And even what I chose to do in college and then what I ended up doing after college. And I think that you want to give your kids enough experiences so that they are able to flesh out some of those ideas. It's not as normal as when I was in high school. It's like you go to high school, you go to college, you get a job in corporate America or whatnot, or you're a teacher, or you're a doctor, or you're a lawyer. Things are just a bit different now, I feel like, and I want to prepare my kids for, the new digital age. I want them to have experience in those things. When I was graduating college, it was pre-YouTube. It was, it was pretty much pre-Facebook too, I think. I think Facebook maybe had just come out and you still needed, your college email address in order to get an account. Before Pinterest, before any of the social media things, life was just a little bit different then. And obviously, as we go through life, we adapt and whatnot, but I need to prepare my kids for some of these things that I didn't really have to experience until after I got out of college, when I was in my later 20s. So that digital age is very important. Computer science is very important. Understanding the different digital tools available, the free course offerings that are online now. There is just so much information out there for free that you can learn pretty much anything that you could set your mind to. And that is amazing. And it can also be stifling because there is so much information. So what I would recommend if you have older kids is to sit down and chat with them and really figure out what are their interests? What are they hoping to gain from their education in high school? Is it a traditional college prep track? That is totally okay. We have been doing a traditional college prep track for my oldest for the past couple of years. And I think that is really good. I think that she needs to know some of these courses. However, I also see where her strengths lie, and it's in a lot of the arts and digital media, and making room for that stuff I think is very important, and teaching her how to utilize those tools well is also very important. There are just so mmany ways to homeschool, and everybody is going to choose a different way, but I guess I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. This right now, I'm mainly just focusing on making sure that I have my core subjects covered, and then thinking about their passion projects as a lot of their electives for high school. Now, Lucy is very different because she is going into 3rd grade next year. We are still firmly in the reading, writing, math, really focusing on those areas. History and science are much more unit-based. In fact, I think I'm going to be going back to what I used to do with Emma and Jack, which was a science-intensive summer. We would take the summer months and a little bit into the fall. It's beautiful in Maine and really doing a lot of nature-based science. Lucy wants to hatch butterflies this year. She's thinking about hatching new chicks for our flock of backyard chickens. We do a lot of gardening, homesteading type things. Those are all really great science related topics to cover. And so we will spend the summer months really focusing on science for her. And then we don't have to really cover that during our normal school year. Because we're year-round homeschoolers, we have different seasons have different focuses. In the winter months, we spend a lot of time doing book learning, seat work, at the table, working on papers and math and all of that stuff, lots of reading. There's always lots of reading in our home. But science experiments, when it's 20 below zero outside and we're buried in snow, it's not something that we really focus on as much in the winter months, but the summer and the fall are great times for science experiments, for doing outside learning, for going for nature walks, nature journaling, all of those types of things. So I am looking at seasonally what we can work on. Now, also thinking about the passion projects, we are finishing up our curriculum for this homeschool year right before Easter, except for math, and then Emma's dissections for science, which I know I have talked about many times in many different videos recently. Those are, Jack and Emma both have math left, and then Emma has her dissections, which we've been waiting until warmer weather to do them outside, and also so my mom can do them with her, because I don't want to do anything with dissections. You know, once we finish our normal curriculum for the year, we still have April, May, and June. My kids don't just stop doing school at that point. Now, they may not be doing as much formal learning. They may not be doing compare and contrast papers. They may not be doing assigned reading. They choose their own books to read during our off months. But they are still working on projects. And so I still try to keep them focused on forward progress in a particular passion project. Right now, Emma is working on a digital portfolio for her animation and illustrations because she wants to start a business. And so that is a lot of work behind the scenes. It's a lot of physical art work that she's doing on her iPad through Adobe Rush, I think is what she uses, and Photoshop and all of those, Illustrator, those types of things. But it's also looking up, how do you start a business? What are some of the online resources to get started? Is Etsy a better option than Fiverr? You know, what are some different online options for her? And so a lot of that stuff isn't necessarily something that I planned for in our homeschool year. I am really focused on the core subjects, the English, the math, the history, and the science, and then all of the other stuff that my kids also enjoy doing gets absorbed into our year. And I still keep track of a lot of that stuff because I find that it's very valuable. Learning how to start a business, I think that's a skill that everybody ought to have, because you just never know what life is going to bring you. And if you know how to manage finances, manage books, what is required if you need a small business license in your state, taxes, all of that kind of stuff is important information just for life. And I think that sometimes we forget about those types of skills. And so I do try to make sure that I'm addressing a lot of different facets of learning for my kids through their passions. Where we are at now, this is a chatty video. Every single video is chatty of mine. I'm making sure that I have a list of things that I will purchase before April 1st and after April 1st from Sunlight. I am also making sure that I know exactly the information that I need from this Japanese curriculum that I have found for Jack to use for next year. I'm also making sure that I have all of my books. Last year, I went through and scanned all of my homeschool books into the Library Thing app by the different levels. So I have all of those books digitally recorded. So I can search my Library Thing app for books. Sometimes books will be moved from one level to another, and I know that I have that book somewhere, but I just don't know where. After I categorized all of my books and I had them shelved by level and in the order that they are used, it made life a lot easier for me to find what I need. And then, you know, there will most likely be some more research as the spring months go on. These spring months are still part of our 2022-2023 homeschool year. I use July 1st as my start date for the next homeschool year, even though we don't start on July 1st. That's just the day that I have chosen as to be my start date for homeschooling for the next year. So there will still be more research done over the next few months, especially as I compile all of the resources we are using and try to figure out my schedule and all of that stuff, which will be coming up in later videos. But I wanted to give you guys an update of where I am at this week. If you use Sunlight, this is the week that you will purchase either old curriculum, or you can wait until next week and purchase the new curriculum after April 1st when everything changes on their website. The prices change and everything gets updated. So that is where we are at the moment. I'm still nowhere near decided on science for Emma. And in fact, since I recorded my last video, I'm unsure if we're going to do chemistry this year or if I'm going to do something else entirely. I've considered maybe doing some sort of nutrition, health and wellness, science instead of chemistry, and doing chemistry after she completes Algebra 2. I've considered guest hollow. A lot of people recommended guest hollow, chemistry in the kitchen, which doesn't have the math portion of chemistry, which I really want. And one person actually said that they are using guest hollow chemistry in addition to Life of Fred chemistry. And I totally forgot that Life of Fred has some of those science options with it, and it really appeals to my literature-based learning brain. Yes, so there was probably a lot of rambling in this video, but as I am talking to you, I am literally planning. As I'm talking to you, I am thinking about what I need to research, what I need to write down for my own lists. I am not pre-planning these videos and just sharing what I've done. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I am planning to talk a lot more about passion projects over the next few months because it's been something that we've been leaning into a lot more this second semester since we've really had a lot more time in our schedule. Last semester, Emma was involved in sports as well as music at the public school, and it took up an enormous amount of time. Because that time was taken up with public school activities, we weren't able to spend as much time on passion projects. And my kids really, really love the freedom of choosing their own passion projects to work on. Just like anything, if you have a passion in your life that you are working on, it's very easy to sit down if you don't have distractions and work on it for a few hours and it doesn't feel like you're doing work because it's something that you're passionate about. So that is my second part of my homeschool update. I've done a lot of research. I've pretty much compiled what we're using for our core subjects at this point. There is still some project-based research that I need to work on, which will happen over the next several months. And then in my next video, I know that I'm going to be going through my end of the year wrap up and reflection questions about how this year went. I do have a free printable if you're interested in doing that before my next video, which hopefully will go up next week. Just evaluating our year in general. What were the strengths? What were the weaknesses? What curriculum worked? What really didn't work? Where can I make changes in our rhythm? You know, all of that type of stuff is on that printable that I have created, and I use that every year to kind of evaluate our year as I'm thinking about the next year. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you have questions about anything that I talked about, please let me know in the comments, or you can email me. My contact form is always in the description box. We are doing a lot of discussion about rhythms and routines over in my Patreon community right now, trying to figure out the best way to move forward in our next homeschool year. And I am also going to be talking a lot about homeschool planning over the coming months over there. If you are interested in joining us, I would love to have you. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye.